Hey, thank you for clicking on this video. I just came out the cold water. It's amazing. It's one of the principles that make me happy. Cold shower. Remember that one? You want to know how being a loser actually lets me win? Stay tuned. Here we go. Why being a loser is the reason I win. Point number one. What is a loser? By definition, a loser is a person or a thing that loses or has lost something, especially a game or contest. So the first question I would ask there is, what is the game and should you be playing it in the first place? What are the rules to this game and who or what decides the winners of this game? For a in-depth analysis to find some of the answers that I've come up with, you can watch my other video called I Fell Off and I'm Loving It, where I break down what I think the game is and explain why I refuse to play it anymore. And by the way, I recommend you don't neither, but to each his own. For the sake of this video though, I will use this definition that I found in the Urban Dictionary. It describes a loser as a stereotypical term for one who doesn't fit into mainstream society or is lacking friends. Losers are usually really funny, unique, or smart individuals who people neglect to try to befriend in fear that they themselves might be labeled as a loser. I think it's clear why I like this definition, as it pretty much states my case from the get-go. You are mostly considered a loser merely by not fitting into mainstream society. Today's human is generally a societal being. Humans have developed in a way where we want to belong and feel safe in the numbers. We've even developed what is called a herd or a pack mentality. There are a lot of reasons that people theorize why humans have this behavior of wanting to flock like sheep and birds. But a study conducted by scientists at the University of Leeds believe that they may have found the reason why we have this herd mentality, and they came to an interesting discovery. The researchers discovered that it takes a minority of just 5% to influence a crowd's direction, and that the other 95% follow without realizing it. I find this interesting and scary when you think about it. The majority will never question why things are the way they are. They just follow as long as it's what the herd is doing, what the majority is doing. But what I find most interesting from the study is that the majority don't actually make the decision. It's actually the 5% influencing the majority without them knowing, and the key here is it's without them knowing. Look, even without the actual scientific study, I think most of us are aware of this phenomenon, but how many of us actually question it? What are we influenced by and why? We even now have a very prominent term of influencers, the term we use for people who make a living by doing just that, influencing others. But have you ever really questioned who influenced and is still influencing our societal norms and culture? Let's be honest, most influencers are not the 5% directing the majority. They probably are being used by the 5%, but they are not the decision makers themselves. Most influencers are popular because they are relatable and fit in with the majority and just know how to look better at doing what everyone else wants to do or does anyway. That's why they gain the numbers, because they are the numbers. But who's the wizard behind the curtain? Without getting into conspiracy theories, I could drop a couple gems on who are some of the biggest puppet masters. Who are the 5% leading the 95% without them knowing? And that will be the losers. I mean, look at the heads of most Fortune 500 companies and the tech billionaires that the world knows, loves, and hates. The majority of them have one similar trait. They were all probably considered losers and outcasts at some point in their life, especially when they were younger. They didn't fit into the narrative and forged their own way, thus shaping the world to better suit them, and now are in control of what everyone thinks is cool. How many followers do you think Mark Zuckerberg would have had if he was just another user of Facebook and Instagram? How many Twitter followers do you think Jack Dorsey would have had? How many stans do you think Elon Musk would have if he was just another employee in some company in Pretoria? Would you even notice Jeff Bezos if he was just another bookshop owner that loved reading? The list goes on. So essentially, by design alone, it would seem that being a loser does have some benefit even in the design of the so-called game. But I vouch for a different type of loser, the kind you might never see or hear of. A loser that is more fulfilled and happy. A loser who doesn't decide to take over the game and change it and own it to fit his needs, but rather a loser who sees the benefit of just walking away from the game entirely and stops playing but chooses to rather live free of the game. Number 2.
Point number 2. Losers are free. Because losers are sidelined and given less attention by society, they gain a certain level of anonymity that comes with an advantage of freedom. Freedom to live up to your own expectation. Freedom to fail because there is no expectation. This freedom produces amazing results for productivity because it frees you from one of the biggest obstacles of progress, the fear to fail. This comes a lot with popularity, as any decline in your success or popularity is observed and commented on by many. This constant critique creates an atmosphere that reminds you and crucifies you for any misstep or mistake. This in turn creates fertile ground to produce a fear of failure. Most of us experience some form of anxiety when we have pressure of people watching us doing anything, especially if we know they are judging us. The most common form of anxiety people feel is status anxiety. The term status anxiety was first popularized by philosopher Alain de Botton in his 2004 book of the same name. It can be defined as the constant fear or worry of being perceived as unsuccessful by society in materialistic terms. Today, every individual constantly tries to outsmart the others to climb up the social ladder. The effects of status anxiety can be impulse buying and status consumption. Now, being considered a loser in the status hierarchy frees you from that fear of failure, because society has already declared you a failure. Therefore, there's nothing to be afraid of. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying fail on purpose, but certainly what I am saying is free yourself from the expectation of societal success. Be okay with not being popular, and if you can accept that, then you can begin to enjoy your success, and even better, celebrate your failures and see them for what they truly are, just lessons and opportunities. To fight this and to try and be popular will only lead you down a tricky road filled with pitfalls and pain, and I suggest you don't go down that road.
Number 3.
Point number 3. Trust in God and not in man. There's a lot of lessons I've learned from the Bible, and one of the most fundamental lessons that I've learned that actually help me in my path every day is trusting in God and not man. Being a loser pushes you further into this principle by limiting your trust in mankind in the first place. I heard a saying once that humanity is not very humane. I found this saying very true, albeit ironic. Humans in practice are a far cry from what they aspire to be. We lie, we cheat, we steal for many reasons, but mostly for self-interest. And even worse, we can't even act in our own self-interest if it creates an inconvenience or makes our life a little harder in the short term. We sacrifice our time and health for fleeting pleasures or materialistic things that do nothing for us but boost our ego. We destroy our beautiful home and inflict pain and suffering for the sake of base comforts and ideals. In short, humans are not to be trusted and should not be the ones that we want to please. Trusting in God has allowed me to make the right decision in some very difficult positions. It has allowed me to act in a position of faith rather than fear. In a world filled with lies, hate, war, and calamity, believing in that higher power grounds you to keep going in the light. It saves you from resigning yourself into the darkness and just giving up. I have way too many personal stories of how God provided for me and protected me in situations by just believing and doing what is right that you probably wouldn't believe me, and I wouldn't expect you to. But I highly recommend you try it and see how it works out for you. Don't put your trust in men, but in God, and see how that plays out for you. Share your stories if you've experienced what I'm talking about in the comment section.
Number 4.
Point number 4. You lose the people you don't need. Linked closely with the previous points, if you are considered a loser by most for not fitting in, then you shed yourself of those people that truly don't care for you, but rather in your status. In being a loser, you will know that anyone who gravitates towards you does so most likely from a genuine place. This means that the people that you'll have around you may not be many, but they will be solid and true. And in a world filled with so much uncertainty and changing tides, you definitely want to have true and genuine connections.
Number 5.
Point number 5. You become your true self. Once you remove the shackles of society, you start to hear your own voice. We all have different voices, and it's important to understand yours to be able to understand others. But unfortunately, the world beats and batters you into conforming to fit in to its narrative, and you end up looking and sounding like everyone else. Being a loser could mean that your voice most likely is not willing to conform. And as discussed in the other points, maybe it shouldn't. We are all gifted in different ways, and if you are not willing to be labeled a loser, then you may never get the chance of discovering what your particular superpower is. So accept being a loser if you want to free yourself and discover who you are while trusting in God. Because yes, the world may not understand you, but the people who are meant to will, and they will love you for you, so you can love them as you love yourself. And hopefully that will give you the freedom that you need to win.
Thank you for watching this video. Really appreciate it. I'm out here, one of my favorite places in the world, Drakensberg Mountains. It's beautiful. I hope this helps you. It makes you understand that it's not so bad being a loser. It's not so bad being an outsider. It actually can work in your favor and actually lets you win. Because when you trust God, you stay winning. Do the things which is like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, which is the most important, and comment. But if you don't want to, it's okay. This channel's not about that. It's about community. So when you comment, give me your advice, how you feel, what this video did for you, what your thoughts are, things that I could learn, and I could learn from you. It's all about community. We keep building it. And that's me, Aewon Wolf, signing out. Away. Bless.